All right, I think we're finally live. It's a really, really exciting day. We have some new toys. In fact, I'll show you some of those pretty soon. But today I wanted to talk to you about retirement and particularly about lifestyle during the retirement or using high cash flow properties to enable you to have a great lifestyle during retirement. I personally not quite at that stage yet. I don't think I'll retire anytime soon. To be honest, I still have a big mission, a big uh, number of people to kind of help kind of get there. But plenty of people who are listening to this and plenty of our clients have gone through that process. Before I start, obviously, you can see just behind me, I am in Stone Horizon's headquarters here in Scoresby in Victoria. My name is Henry Villa. I'm the managing director here. And today I thought I'd do a little bit something, a little bit informal, a little bit more like a general chat. And we're going to have opportunities for people to ask questions and to cover a few things. I have my question just over here. I have my camera in front of me, my Microsoft phone. Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay. There's a few lights. In fact, why don't I show you what this studio looks like? I have another camera here. You can tell there, right? I have a camera there, teleprompter, so I can see what's happening. You can see some lights there in the back and a little bit of a microphone to hopefully have many of these conversations. This is the first one of many to cover certain topics that we believe are important for us to cover, probably in a little bit more detail than the way we will cover them in webinars or in the videos or some of the in-person presentations that we do in a number of conferences, kind of every now and then, right? So now, first very important thing is to kind of clarify what do we mean. What's this conversation today for? This conversation today is for you if you're sort of starting to get at that age where you're starting to think about retirement. Many of you might already be there. Also, this conversation is for you, and you probably want to listen today if you're not quite at retirement age, but you want to make sure that by the time you get to retirement age, that you can actually retire. And not only retire, but retire with a lot more in terms of lifestyle that you can probably do if you depend on the pension or to be honest, many of us, even if you depend just on your superannuation. Um, you know, a lot of people think about these properties and what they are. So what is the difference between kind of what Stone Horizon does and other ways of retirement? What's the difference between the path of using passive cash flow around property versus using other forms of investments as a way to retire and as a way to depend on it. And there's obviously a few conversations there. It's a bit of a monologue today, but I'm seeing sort of people online now, and I wanted to make sure that we turn these as close to a conversation as we can. Those of you who have met me in person before, you will know that I have no issue talking to people. In fact, it's very, very often that we set out these conversations and these events to last, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. And then we end up going multiple times that because getting me to talk, not too much of a problem. Getting me to stick to the timeline, it's a little bit harder. And today, actually, I'm super glad that it's just me here in the studio. There's literally no real preset agenda today. It's just me, a little bit off the cuff, covering a few of these things in a more conversation style. And that also gives me an excuse to go maybe a little bit longer than I normally would. In fact, I have a kind of watch here next to me just to make sure that I just don't get between, people and dinner, people and putting kids to bed, or any of the other stuff, or maybe people on Netflix, right? Maybe that's kind of what you want to do kind of tonight. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about retirement. If you follow all the rhetoric that, a lot of the kind of spruikers out there are putting out there, and God forbid you're listening to one of the main kind of news channels or TV channels about what retirement is, they'll tell you we're all screwed, right? They'll all tell you that by the time most of us get to retirement, and I'm 47 or turning 47 this year, so I still have hopefully a couple of decades to get there, maybe a little bit longer. That means by the time we get there, we're gonna need, I think they say you need $1 million or something to be able to retire. Now, the tricky bit there is when you listen to what they call retirement, and particularly the lifestyle that they're really putting in front of you as part of that retirement. To be honest, not particularly exciting. I think they're saying that an average couple needs like $1,000 or $2,000 a week to live. I mean, that's $52,000 a year. I don't know you, but my lifestyle costs a little bit more than $52,000 a year, and I will at least like to keep it in the shape it is now, and with the luxuries or the little luxuries and a lot of the enjoyment that I actually have at the moment in my life. I don't want to go and cut down on things and not being able to go places. For me, the big thing is travel. Travel is kind of my thing. I like going places, experiencing the culture, experiencing the food. Those of you who met me in person can tell that I can definitely enjoy the food. But we want to definitely continue doing some of that. So both my wife and I decided a long time ago that this was part of what we wanted to continue to do. So we don't want to be in that camp. In an ideal world, I would like to retire with the same amount of money I make today. That will be ideal to me, right? I spend a fair bit of money on trips and travel and experiences, and fair enough, I have little kids. So again, some of you have met them, but some of you haven't. So I have 10-year-old twin boys. I shouldn't do this anymore. They're getting kind of taller and taller kind of by the day. And of course, by the time I retire, they will have a life of their own. They will have maybe even a business of their own, and they will have made a whole bunch of choices at that point. But I still want to be able to share with them. Who knows? Maybe I'm spoiling the grandkids by then. But definitely have a life full of experiences and full of enjoyment. I want to have a nice lifestyle when I retire. Too much of the time we hear stories of people who work, and the promise of retirement is there. And by the way, by the time you get to retirement, suddenly you need to cut all these expenses and try to make this money kind of last all longer. And so it's very, very clear to me, and it's very, very clear to a lot of people out there that saving for retirement is not the right thing, right? Doesn't matter how much money you save between now and the day you retire, inevitably you'll run out of money. And that's actually not a great place to be. I had a friend from America, from North America, who used to say to me a lot, he said, like, the problem is if you end up having too much life at the end of your money, not too much money at the end of your life. And again, I'm a big believer of that philosophy. I'm scared to death of the possibility of running out of money. Or worst, I'm scared to death of being at a point into my future, in my retirement years, where I'm hoping to die quickly so I don't run out of money. What sort of future is that? The reality is I want to live longer. I want to live 100 years, 150 years maybe, right? Who knows? Maybe between now and the time when God sends me the message to go home, they invent something that allows my body to kind of continue going, or transfer my mind into an AI thing, or who knows what the future entails. But death is definitely not something I'm looking forward to, and I would like to delay that as much as I can. But I need money to be able to get that far, and I need money to be able to maintain my lifestyle until that day actually happens. None of us knows when that's going to happen, but I want to make sure that I have enough money to go through there. So what do you do? So saving is not the answer, because again, what can you save in the next 10, 20, 50 years? For some people, the next 10, the next 5, the next 2. Some people are retired already and are in a situation where they need to make the money they already have exist longer. And the answer is assets. You need assets that produce a cash flow, ideally every month, and that don't depreciate. So those assets can continue to produce cash flow for as long as you live. And in fact, some of the assets we produce in the high cash flow property space not only do that, but it will continue to produce assets for the rest of your life, for the rest of your kids' life, for the rest of your grandkids, and basically any generation after that, because they don't disappear, they don't depreciate, they don't go down in value, and they produce cash flow every month. But a lot of people think property is not the right way to go. And I think it's because they're looking at property the traditional way. Now, many of you, and I did it too once, invest in property to save tax. And that, to me, is a recipe for disaster. Why is it a recipe for disaster? It's a recipe for disaster because for you to save tax, for you to take those concessions that the government gives employees and business owners, you need to lose money, right? The whole thing starts by, well, if you lose some money on property, that's okay, because you can take that loss out of your other income, and you can take that loss out of your tax. It's good that you're kind of not going to lose all money, and it's good if you're investing in properties that go up in value, and it's good if you have a lot of disposable income to manage that loss and to be able to cash flow that property and, fill in the money that is left in the mortgage at the end of the rent. But the reality is most of us cannot stay there forever. Most of us are fine in that agenda or in that plan when we're working, when we're producing hopefully lots and lots of money, probably more money than we actually need to spend. But the problem is, if you're thinking about retirement, by definition, at some point you will stop working and you will stop earning a salary. Now, how does a negative cash flow or a negative year portfolio look at that point? Where is the rest of the mortgage payment going to come from? Where is the rest of the money that you need to put in every month for your tenant to live in your house? Where's that money going to come from? Where's the repairs and the maintenance and all the other things that need to happen? Where are they going to be, right? It's a hard one. It's a hard one. And it's a hard one because you're going to stop, you've created a portfolio based on the presumption that you're going to have a job forever. And for most of us, that's not true. We're just not thinking up that far. The answer, though, is to have a portfolio of properties. For some people, that's one property. For some people, that's 5 properties. For some people, that's more than that produces cash flow every month. And that's the kind of properties we build. We build properties less focused on the value of the property, although properties continue to appreciate over time, but more focused on having cash flow out of that property every month. And that's how plenty of our clients have retired. Some of them have not retired, but they could retire tomorrow. I, for one, don't have any worries about money anymore, to be honest. I have a portfolio of rooming houses that creates cash flow every month. And that if I really wanted to get an express pass to retirement, I'll be there tomorrow. Now, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, I'm not necessarily someone who's about to retire tomorrow. I have a big mission to achieve and lots of people to help between now and the time when I can't kind of work anymore. But it's so good to have options to be able to do that. So let's talk a little bit about, so some of these properties, how they're different. How is the traditional kind of real estate property portfolio different to the kind of portfolios we build, or even a hybrid portfolio where you have some properties that are, let's call them negatively geared, or that are more equity growth oriented, but also produce cash flow every month. There's no reason why these properties can't be kind of together in the same portfolio. And in fact, many of our clients have started their investment career investing in, let's call them capital growth or value growth properties, negatively geared properties mostly, but then kind of complement that portfolio with some cash flow properties that initially go and pay off the equity growth properties, but eventually produce cash flow for retirement and for other uses too. There's no necessarily you have to be retired to take an advantage of this. But today we're talking about people who are on that path to finally retire. So let's use an example, right? And I have a board just kind of behind me there, so I might actually draw some lines a little bit later on. But very, very importantly, let's talk about the typical property we build. Yeah, it's a property that is on a 600 square meters of land, usually majority of them in regional Victoria, although probably about 40% of our properties are in metropolitan Melbourne too, as more and more people find options to convert their existing properties into this style of property and to put some individual properties and some blocks of land that they already have, turn them into higher cash flow. So again, 600 square meters of land. If we were going to buy a block of land there today, and in fact we're in the process of buying a number of those for our clients and to helping them identify them, and also for our own portfolios, that block of land is probably going to cost about $320,000, right? Now I can hear you. You're saying, where can you buy 600 square meters of land for $320,000? And let me tell you, it's not in inner Melbourne. It's not in the middle ring suburbs. In fact, for most of it, is not in metropolitan Melbourne at all. But remember, we're not chasing capital growth here anymore, because capital growth, particularly over the last 2 years or 3, has all but guaranteed, right? In fact, you can actually have a look at the statistics, and many of Australia's cities are actually going down in value. There's a whole bunch of conversations about the property market now bottoming up, and properties are still gonna start going up now, and all that sort of stuff. And that may as well be true, but it's very important to know that if you don't need any of that, you're even better off. My properties go up in value, all of them, right? Even the ones in regional Victoria. But you know what? I don't want to say I don't care, because it's nice to get a bonus every now and then. It's nice to see your balance sheet going up over time. But that's not why I bought it. And to be honest, it's probably more important for my kids and my grandkids if one day they want to either refinance or liquidate that portfolio. That's probably the only reason why having this capital growth is good. Generally speaking, it's all about cash flow. And because of that, me personally, not all our clients are like this, but me personally, I prefer to invest in regional Victoria, where the cost of land is cheaper and the returns are better. Because I invest in rooming houses and in high cash flow properties the name says it, because I want cash flow. I want the money now. I don't want the money in 2 years or in 3 years or in 10 years. I don't want to have, I love my bankers. They give me money to invest in these properties. So, if you're listening to this, my bankers, please don't take this the wrong way. But I don't want to depend on a banker to give me money to refinance my property so I can go on vacation to Europe, or I can go on a trip to Japan, or I can take my kids to Disneyland. That's not what I want to do. I want to depend on my property manager who collects rent for me every single month. In fact, multiple of them, about 9 from every property. Put them together, pays expenses, take their well-deserved commission, and then hands it over to me. Hands me the rest. Because even though I own that business, even though I own that part of the business, I am a client like most of the people listening to this. I don't want to manage tenants. I don't want to manage properties. I don't want to manage toilets. We have a great team here. Well, it's not here now. It's pretty late for that. But, they're normally in that office next door who are specialists in doing that. They do that way better than I ever could. But I still get a check. I still get a check every month. And hey, if I enjoy it, most of the time I reinvest it because, again, I don't need the cash flow now. But I know when I get to retirement, I'm going to be ready, right? So, again, going back to the story of this property, and apologies for the detour over there. Block of land, about 600 square meters of land, normally about 320 grand for the block of land. Now, we built one of these properties on top of that. The price of properties vary depending on, the size of the property and the type of facilities we have. We have a number of packages. But if we take our cash flow maximizer package, normally the construction cost on that today is about $700,000, right? So that means that just over $1 million, right? I have one of these properties ready to operate like this, right? So we hand it over to the property management team here in the office. They go and furnish it. They go and put a couple of ads, get a few tenants. They might not even need to put ads. Not all our properties are listed in realestate.com.au or a whole bunch of the other methods that we get tenants from. Plenty of them are filled with tenants just out of our waiting list, right? Some of these areas, the demand is so high that, we can't build these properties quick enough. But let's assume for a moment that we're going to go the traditional way and put these ads, get a few tenants through, do a few inspections, and get a few tenants to move in. In the case of most of my properties, I tend to build cash flow maximizers, which are 9 studios on each of these properties. So we need 9 tenants to move in there. Sometimes we have couples, so it might be somewhere between 9 and 12 people. But there are 9 different tenancies, if you like. There are nine different contracts, 9 different agreements. Each of those with, like I said, a different individual or couple. And then from there, the rent just starts coming in. Now, rents change, and rents change depending on where you are in the country. Rents change depending on where in Victoria you are. Most of you know that we build anywhere in Victoria, but we are constrained by the borders in Victoria. So Murray River at the north, there's obviously was Murray River, most of it really. But I guess the south is a Bass Strait. We don't go into Tasmania or into any of the other states. The reason why we focus in Victoria is because the regulation in Victoria, it's a lot more pro-landlord than, in terms of rooming houses, pro-investor, I guess. I shouldn't say pro-landlord. And in fact, our Residential Tenancies Act recently changed, creating a number of changes that are actually pro-tenant. But even with those with those characteristics in place, even with those changes now in place, I will still say, hand in heart, that Victoria is still probably the best place to, design, build, and operate rooming houses that there is in this country, and to be honest, in many other countries as well. I am quite familiar with the method and the model in the UK, where a lot of these things first started after the First World War, probably about the same time that the traditional rooming houses started here. Their problem is, a lot of their buildings are, they're already there. You can't quite knock down something to build something new, the type that we build here. Plus, let's face it, if you live in Australia, do you really want to have an investment in the UK all that far behind? I mean, some of you will have heard, Charles, one of our clients who we just finished his first kind of rooming house for us, and we're now looking at, doing a second one with him. He made a career out of investing in the UK. He has a lot of properties over there and a lot of projects over there. And in that interview, which, if you're watching this in YouTube, it'll be down here somewhere in the channel. If you're watching this in Facebook, it'll probably be there in our page somewhere. He speaks about it. He speaks about doing a lot of work on each of those projects and a lot of work in each of those properties. Whereas most of our clients here, they hand over all those responsibilities to us because we've created a team and a system and a property that gives you all the benefits of investing in high cash flow real estate with none of the hassle. That's literally our mission. It's not written here anywhere, but you can actually see it in the next office if you're ever here and come and visit us. You'll see every employee in this company, every client here, every supplier, every subcontractor knows our main goal is to provide the benefits of high cash flow property to our clients with none of the hassle. In fact, many of our clients, they have not even seen their properties at all. They're there and we show them, and they obviously see the numbers, and we obviously show them pictures all the time. And by all means, they can come and visit it the same way that I visit mine, every now and then. But many of them, they're busy people who live interstate, sometimes even overseas, who have, a need for high cash flow investment, a need for someone to park their money that multiplies itself, that multiplies over time, that produces cash flow every month, without having to think about renovations or maintenance or toilets or, God forbid, tenants that don't behave the way they need to behave, right? Tenants are always going to be tenants, and there's always going to be complications with those. But how easy it is to have a team over there that takes care of all of those headaches without you having to get distracted, whether it's out of your job or your business, if that's what you're doing, or in the case of our conversation today, out of your wonderfully earned retirement lifestyle. How good will it be to be in the Greek islands or in a cruise somewhere, or my favorite, drinking mojitos in the Bahamas and not having to worry about where your next mortgage payment is going to come from, where your next bill is going to come from, where your next cruise or your next trip, sometimes in business class or in first, will come from, and get to a point where this money not only is coming to you every month as if it was a salary, but also will multiply over time. Now, how much money exactly we're talking about? And I'll finish with this, and then I'll stand by my promise to the team that I wasn't going to go on a rant for hours and hours, but I was going to deliver some high value here in terms of giving you a sense for what this looks like, and then let you all go to what pretty sure you have other things to do in your night, whether spend time with your family or, like I said, even watch Netflix. Um, again, we've been talking about this cash flow maximizer package, which is kind of one of our offerings. Is the one that I actually have quite a few of. And each of those properties, again, 320 grand. The land construction cost about 700,000. Total cost, just under 1.1 million. That property produces, if I pick one that I can remember off the top of my head, because my memory is not great, produces about $120,000 to $130,000 of rent every year, right? Now, mine are not paid off, yeah? I still have plenty of money from the bank into my properties because I'm still growing my portfolio, and that's the right thing for me to do. But if you're not at that stage, if you own the property, then your rent is 120 grand. Some expenses coming out of that, a few management fees coming out of that, but that's largely it. Yeah. However, if you're like me and you're financing most of it, I finance as much as I can, so that way I can build more of them and make my money last longer. Then you're still probably talking about $50,000 a year, right? Now, who knows what the interest rates are going to be by the time you hear this? They've been changing dramatically over the next 18 months on their way up. Maybe by the time you hear this, start coming down. So those numbers might change a little bit. So, take it with a grain of salt. Contact us and we can give you some more detailed kind of information about the way this works. But very, very, very important to kind of give you a point of reference so you know what sort of we're talking about. Today, most of our clients are in that continuous. Most of my properties, somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 of free cash flow, depending on what sort of investment I made in it and what sort of finance facility do we have in place. So how good will that be? How good would it be to make an investment on a property and for your next investment to pay you $50,000 free after mortgage, after expenses, after management fees, after vacancy, after absolutely anything in your pocket every month? And to look at retirement with, say, $120,000 of salary, guaranteed for the rest of your life. And by the way, your kids cannot inherit your traditional salary, but your kids can inherit this because real property is here. It touches it. It won't go away the day you and I go away. So how will that look? How will that feel? Is that something that you want to kind of see more? Is that something that you want to, talk more? Again, this is only a little bit of a teaser of what that will be like and some of the ideas of how these properties can help during retirement. We're going to try to do these more often. In fact, we're seeing if we try these more systematically a couple times a week or maybe a couple times a month. We'll see how we go with this. But in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Usual stuff. There's stuff there. There's stuff here. Or just Google Stone Horizon and you'll find our website. Click the button, book for a no obligation discovery call where we can have a more detailed conversation about your situation and what you're looking for, the way we work and how that helps. And hopefully I'll see many of you pretty soon.